Hi guys, and welcome back to Milk Mummies, the podcast where we have honest, powerful conversations about motherhood, identity, and everything in between. In today's episode, we're talking about something that affects so many families but not everyone understands. SEN, neurodiversity, and what it really looks like navigating systems that weren't built for you. Marsha Martin is the founder of Black SEN Mamas, a growing community supporting Black mothers raising neurodivergent children across the UK. She's an advocate, a voice in national media, and someone who has turned lived experience into real impact. In this episode, we talk about the reality behind the headlines, the emotional weight of advocating for a child, and what needs to change, not just systemically, but culturally. Let's get into it. So, Marsha, hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been one of stress and difficulties, but I am processing it. I think I'm at a better place now.
Okay, that's great. I tend to often suggest violence for no good reason. I'm not even that much of a violent person, but if anyone needs to be kicked in the shins, I think,
Yeah, I will bear that in mind. Okay. Thank you.
That's great. You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming down today. I really, really wanted to pick your brains, learn more, and understand more about the community in which you are building, you are working in, and it's Black SEN Mums, if I got that correctly, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Black SEN Mamas.
Yeah, Black SEN Mamas. So I really, really wanted to learn and just hear how that all kind of came to be. But before we dive into that, I wanted to understand what was life like before motherhood for you.
Before it, well, I didn't know we were going that far back. But for me, I think it was reckless, and this is more of a retrospective take because actually I didn't recognise when I was in the midst of everything. But looking back, I think it's quite typical of young girls who are very much outside the box, undiagnosed neurodivergent, very turbulent roller coaster like emotions, and just trying to find ways to quell that. Lots of escapism, not necessarily in the most healthy of ways. But yeah, definitely calmed down following motherhood. I actually made a decision. I was like, look, you need to have a kid. Otherwise, I don't know where I'm going to be at. So yeah.
Okay, I see. And then in terms of things like, I guess, pregnancy into birth, how was that all for you as well?
Do you know, it's interesting because on one hand, and I think I put this down to being ADHD with a mixture of autism and ADHD, as reckless as I am or was, because I kind of needed to feed that want for, I guess, excitement and novelty. I also was very meticulous and needed things structured. And so I think as far as pregnancy, that side of my brain took over things because I recognised actually I have to be quite responsible. This is a life. Like, this is a real human being. So everything was very meticulously planned out, even from the very beginning stages. And I basically went through it like a normal pregnancy. Everything was fine. Everything was good. No stress. Apart from the fact that I had very extreme morning sickness right through the entirety of the pregnancy. It didn't stop. But aside from that, everything was textbook. And she was a couple of weeks late. And I gave birth in a pool with no medication, no gas and air, nothing. I was really on this whole natural, Towards the end, on the third child, I was like, this baby's trying to kill me. Give me stuff. But yeah.
No, wow, incredible. Sorry, I had gas and air with mine, and I still don't know if it worked or not because the level of just pain that that I endured. So to go without anything, like, I can only salute you kids, man.
Thank you.
Wow, just absolute wows. Did you always know you wanted to be a mom as well? Or I know you said you reached a point where I have to have one.
No, I was vehemently against having children for the longest time, in my teens especially. And I've never told anyone apart from, I guess, my close friends, this story. It really started with this little boy that used to go, that was actually two, and I remember their names, but I won't say them. They used to go to my primary school, and they were both disabled. One had Down syndrome and the other was autistic. And those were my very first introductions to disability in children. And I would cry a lot about them because I would see how they were treated on the playground. And I told you tears are going to come.
And I still haven't got my tissues done. I'm so... anyway.
And the most poignant memories were how their parents were struggling.
Okay.
And I'd see them, and especially one was, I think, Eastern European, and the other one who had Down syndrome. He was amazing. Like, he was like the life and soul of the school, but he was oftentimes in trouble, and now I recognise he shouldn't have been. And he was Nigerian, and his mum was very much a pray it away type mum. I remember that. I remember our parents talking about it, like, you know, she needs to be more proactive, she needs to put support in place. And it was just such a negative take for parents. And as I got older, I guess I didn't recognise autism.
Okay.
So I must not have really, I didn't see it because I didn't know what I was looking for, but I certainly remember periods of time where I'd meet children or adults with Down syndrome in passing, and I'd be brought back to that space. And there was a thing that I used to say to myself, to God actually. I used to say, like, please don't let me be a parent with a child that really struggles in life.
Okay.
Like, this was like my early adulthood, late teens.
Okay.
Please. And then because of that, I was like, I don't know if I can do this because, and I swear, there was something so strongly in me, and I'd even get blamed actually for talking this into existence.
Okay. There
was something so strongly in me that believed that I would have a child who had Down syndrome, specifically Down syndrome.
Okay.
And I was like, I wouldn't be able to cope as a parent. So I was very vehemently against it. I didn't have a child with Down syndrome. I had 3 children with autism and ADHD. Like, I don't know, God was like, okay, so you think you better, I'm going to show you something. so that's basically what it was. That was my initial, like, I don't know if I can do this as a parent, because that was just stuck in my mind. I don't know why I felt it so strongly. And I'd have these conversations with my close friends. And then there was a point at which a family member was like, well, your energy was, and that's why your children.
Thank you, family member.
Yeah, thank you.
There's always one. One. No, so I'm laughing because I'm just like, why are we like?
There's a few actually. It's not always. There's a few that had a lot of choice things to say.
Thanks, guys. Very much appreciated. Never mind. Anyway, moving on from that. How did Black SEN Mamas come to be?
Yeah, I tell this story a lot, and it is my truth. And I know a lot of people get upset about this because of their, I guess, belief that racism is non-existent in the UK. Okay. Probably due to their lack of experience with this, especially not on my side as someone that had to navigate it. But what happened was I had moved to a largely, predominantly non-Black area, coming from an inner city. You know, I was born and raised in Hackney. And there's so much diversity there. And like looking back, I always have a smile on my face. I miss it so much. I never experienced racism up until the age of 16 when I moved to this place in Essex. Okay. And it was really bad, actually. It wasn't just small things. These were massive incidents, some of them involving the police. Okay, wow. Really scary stuff. As a 16-year-old, of course, up until early adulthood, that was traumatic. I'll give you an example. So I moved with my best friend who was white, blonde hair, blue eyes. She moved in with me and my mum because it was close to her college in Hackney, and her parents were moving all the way to Bournemouth. And it was just such an interesting social experiment because I would always be confronted with racism and she would be stood on the side.
Okay, sort of like watching it or not quite
sure. She would never be impacted in the way that I was because it was never directed towards her. So groups of men, I'd be spat at, I'd be, people would walk past me and cough in my face. I remember walking home from work when I was like 18, 19. And it was dark because it was the winter, and I'd have groups of men like following behind me, all white men, adults. And I knew I couldn't react. When I was with my friend, she was livid. And I used to say to her, you can't keep, because she would say stuff and she'd get really angry. She's from Hackney, right? She's like, this can't happen to my friend. And also her sister is mixed race. Not that matters. She just genuinely was like, this is wrong. And I used to say to her, you can't react like that. We actually have to react very passively, because if you react and overreact, that will come back on me. And she took that very seriously. So she would kind of just stand off to the side when these things happen. And it was we were the only black family on the road. I remember the day that we moved in, someone called the police, and as we were moving furniture in, and the police kind of walked in to my house, because the door was open because we were moving furniture in, and they were questioning my uncle, who's an older gentleman, has had mental health issues before, and in that way has had run-ins with the law. And so he was almost cowering and just really fawning and passive, and it just was really sad to see, like, he was obviously triggered. This is very traumatic for these police coming in, and he was just helping us to move in, and they're questioning him, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Officer. And I ran down the stairs. I was 16 years old, and I was like, what are you doing in my house? Obviously I had, at that point, like, I hadn't really experienced racism like that, because I was just moving there. I was still my Hackney self. What are you doing in here? And they were like, oh, we've received calls that someone's burglarizing the house. I was like, why do you think that we've moved in and put pictures of ourselves up?
This is the worst burglary attempt ever. Like,
and it was in the middle of the day as well, and he said nothing. And I recognised then that my neighbours did that on purpose. They were letting us know, you're not welcome here.
Got you.
Literally, it's gone to big old 2026, and we're finally getting the first other black family moving in.
Wow, really?
In my mum's, because my mum still lives there. Across the road. I was like, why is it taking so long?
Why is it taking you so long?
But so that's the kind of dynamic, that's the environment, that's the atmosphere that we're in constantly. And so I recognise that psychologically and also, physically, I wasn't actually safe there. It was a very scary time growing up there. And then fast forward to me having my first child and frequenting these, because I was very proactive. I was doing my first degree in psychology as a biological science, and we were looking at developmental disabilities, and of course autism was included. And they say, when you do subjects like psychology, be careful not to project all these different diagnoses on people. And I was like, I wouldn't do that. And then I had my daughter, and I was like, she was 3 months old, and very, very much against making eye contact, so much so to the point where she was lifting her head when she shouldn't have been able to avoid eye contact. And I was like, no, something's going on. I was cognizant of the fact that I could have been projecting, so I was like, you know what, put a pin in it and just monitor. She wasn't meeting developmental milestones, so by the time she was before she was 1, I was very proactive in making sure I was accessing these early years SEN groups. And that's where I ran into some trouble. And there were lots of reasons why I felt that myself and my daughter shouldn't be there. It wasn't, and I just need to clarify this, it wasn't the staff, it wasn't these were statutory run groups. It wasn't the staff that manned the groups or anything like that. It was the families, it was the parents. There was explicit overt racism. There were comments about my child, about her skin tone, about her hair type, and there was lots of exclusion. They would straight up ignore me if I was talking to them. They would move away from me and my kid. I mean, I wouldn't say the kids didn't play together, because they were all autistic and they were just not interested in playing together in general. Right? They're off doing their own thing. So my daughter, I think for me, I needed to know that I wasn't in a space that would have a negative impact on my daughter in some way, especially one that I wasn't able to perceive because she was non-speaking at the time. So I effectively stopped going to these groups. I couldn't navigate ensuring my child had a great quality of life in a society that was not necessarily receptive to or supporting of disabled people, alongside navigating racism in a space that was essentially supposed to be a safe space for us. So I made the decision to leave. And then I was isolated for a good few years. I was in a very low place, had depression, anxiety, wouldn't leave the house. also kicking myself and recognizing I'm being a terrible parent to my child. I come from a Caribbean background, so things like disability and autism were not spoken about often. There wasn't much information about it, you know. As far as the discussions that we had in my household, it was just non-existent. It was more so looking at who we spoke about it in front of and being mindful not to have these conversations with other people and don't put this information on social media, and like it just had a whole tinge of shame to it, which I definitely internalized for a while. And that informed the way in which I handled my parenting, and also the way in which I handled my mental health. All of it was to just bury it. And then it got to a point where I was like, this is no way to live for my child.
So
it wasn't even so much.
Were you just a mother to one of your children at
Yes,
the time?
just one. Cool. I didn't know what was yet to come, child. So I made the decision. I was like, look, I'm sick of this. I can't. I need to do more. I need to do better. And it's one thing educating yourself and looking at textbooks regarding, autism, but the reality of being a parent of a child who's autistic, and bear in mind at this point I had no clue that I was autistic. I was just doing my own thing, unsupported. I was like, this is not it. So I was like, I need to find people that I can relate to. This whole thing was built out of yearning to have people see me, hear me, understand me, empathize with me, people that found me relatable as well, people that I could share information and support with on this journey mutually, because it's such an isolating journey. I'm not parenting in the same capacity as all my other friends who are, if they were at this point, because I would think I was 23, having children. And so my life looked very different, and I didn't want to be around people that I had to explain why our normal was not their normal. And I just wanted to be around people that could understand. So I created a group on Instagram, and just overnight it went up by hundreds, and then over a few months it went up by thousands. And I always say that definitely speaks to the fact that this kind of support isn't needed. It doesn't exist, and it's sorely needed. So that's not really, we couldn't afford to advertise anything that we were doing, because all the money was going into the mental health support sessions and one-to-one therapy programs, and this was money that I was earning through consulting. So that's literally how it kind of started. And I didn't recognize how important a space like this was for people like me, until I saw it just unfolding. And I was like, this is beyond me now. This is above me now.
How did that feel, knowing that, as you just said, this is beyond me now? What was that feeling like?
That feeling was like, because I didn't know, I had no clue about how to do something that would impact so many people. This was happenstance. Like, this was, like I said, born out of necessity, and it took on a life of its own, and it developed so quickly in such a short space of time that this thing was just happening. It was just happening, and I was there observing it happening, and I was proud. I was fearful, because I very much someone who's autistic, and that need for control over my, things that affect and impact me was very much there. But it's like, wow, this is growing exponentially, and there's no way for me to stop this. And this is great. This is a great thing, but it's very scary as well. I didn't know how to run a business, how to create an organization. I lacked basic business sense. I was socially inept. There's so much.
Too harsh what's happening.
No, but this is the reality. I didn't recognize that I'd be catalyzing quote unquote a movement until it was moving. And this is much more than a movement. Like, this is such a massive, like I say to the mums all the time, even if no one's coming to get us, we have us. And they are such an amazing group of mums as well. We're at over 7,000 Black SEN Mamas in the network. And I look at them and I'm in full admiration of the varied areas of specialism, of professionalism, of knowledge. And for me, I feel like I don't think I've met anyone or anything more formidable than a determined Black woman. And so because of that, because I see that we have been honed to be doctors, lawyers, teachers, specialists of various kinds, because we want to go above and beyond for our children, and we are constantly advocating, there is nothing stronger than that and more resilient than that. And I don't always like to use those terms because I don't feel like in the Western world, Black women are afforded the luxury of vulnerability, as I call it. But it's the truth. And I say that because what I mean is, if anyone has us, it's us. And I'm so glad that it's us, because the power within our group, within the sisterhood, is insurmountable.
That's brilliant. That's amazing. No. Yeah. Sorry, that was just really dope. It's such a beautiful way to put that. And as you said something, you said, you're so glad if anyone has us, like they have us. Like that's just really beautiful. And I knew exactly what you meant by that. I guess I wanted to use this time with you to break any assumptions that you may come across or face. But I guess for anyone who's listening, who thinks they understand SEND, like what's the reality that they're missing?
I think when we talk about the SEN system from the outside, unless you've experienced the beast, it feels like, and especially like when ministers talk about, governmental ministers talk about it, it feels accessible and it feels structured and it feels like it's there to support our children. And the reality of that is it's a constant adversarial environment where the mums are fighting all the time to ensure their children have access to education, to ensure their children have the basic provisions that they are legally entitled to already. They still have to fight for that, for the bare minimum. And it looks like mums constantly having to make calls between different departments, liaise, be the middleman, be the linchpin to this whole process to ensure that their child's information isn't lost with social care or isn't lost with the local authorities or isn't lost with the teachers, to make sure we're at all the meetings all the time advocating on 100. Especially as a Black woman, the way that my advocacy looks very different to non-Black women, because I have to make sure that I'm now not intimidating. I have to, and that doesn't mean that I am intimidating. I have to make sure that I'm not able to be perceived as intimidating. There's a whole lot that has to go on in my head to ensure that I can advocate in a child. So that I can advocate in a way that is effective for my child, but also not stepping on overly sensitive toes. And I have to appeal to people's sensibilities all the time just to see my child as human enough to have rights to access education alongside everyone else. And that's painful.
Of course.
And of course I'm going to be upset, and of course I'm going to be passionate, but I'm always going to be policed about my tone as a Black woman before anyone looks at why I'm upset. And it's usually due to failings within the local authority, within the school. We talk about SEND tribunals, parents fighting in court because the local authority don't want to give them what their children are entitled to. And they're winning 99% of these cases. And that says to me that 99% of the time, local authorities are engaging in unlawful acts. And those impact our children, the quality of life, their outcome in life, because the local authority and it starts, it's like a top down, right? It starts at governmental level, whereby they are not resourcing the local authority. There's mismanagement with the money, and then that leads down to misadministration, mismanagement with the money in the local authority levels. And then that leads down to the school, whereby they now have to restrict provision for our children. Because they don't have, they're underfunded, under-resourced, undertrained. They don't have that. And I mentioned, as a Black mum, our advocacy looks different because, in part, because we have to monitor how we appeal to people's nature, but also because access to support looks different for our children. And that is statistically evidenced. There is empirical evidence that documents this. And so my child, due to someone's implicit bias, because we're all humans, and we all are exposed to social conditioning, including teachers, and they are not doing the work to reflect and check their biases, and they don't have training that supports an understanding of SEND, because they get they get a half a day's worth of training for special educational needs, and that's all disabilities, all neurominorities included in that one half a day session. And then they're expected to implement it within a classroom setting with a bunch of children that have varied levels of need. And all the other stuff that teachers have to go through. Teachers are stressed. They don't have time to juggle and manage these things, right? It's not because they don't want to. They are just at capacity. And so we're looking at having a lack of understanding of a true understanding of how to support SEND in terms of implementation within the classroom, but also a lack of that understanding of the culturally nuanced differences that fall on and exist on the intersection of race and disability, whereby presentation of neurominorities is varied across different cultural identities. And the way in which my black child presents, and oftentimes it is masking, and black children are often taught to mask. When we leave the house, we know by age 5 there's a certain way that we need to present ourselves because we're in a largely non-black space. And that is passed down through cultural transmission. It's in here subconsciously. So we already have an affinity for masking parts of ourselves because we're primed by our parents and grandparents. You can't just leave the house any old way. The way that my mum used to get onto me whenever I wore a hood, and she was right to do that because this is when we moved to Essex. She was right to do that. Like, you can't wear a hood. You can't do that. You're going to get arrested. I'm like, Mum, I've not done anything to be arrested. Doesn't matter. Even to when I got my first job working in an office, I was the only black person there and they hated me. And I'd get in trouble for not speaking up, not being involved in the conversations, not going to the pub with them after lunch. I'd literally get in trouble for that because I was seen as cold and standoffish. And all the things that they othered me for and hated me for, effectively, was actually not because of my blackness, but because of my autism, which they wouldn't have known. But I was just different. I had people like literally take my hair out, pull up my hair, tell me it's fake, and it was an awful time. So there's just little understanding of the varied presentation of disability. And so when our children, and this is documented, are expressing an unmet need via behaviour, because that's the way that they know how to communicate it, people with implicit biases, with these negative stereotypes of our children, are relying on those biases in lieu of any kind of training to enlighten them, to inform what they perceive our children's behaviour to be. And that is negative, that is disruptive, that is aggressive, that is lazy. They don't see that there is a lot more going on underneath, and they're quick to label our children these really harmful labels that actually stick with our children throughout the entirety of their schooling lives and in later life. Actually impacts their outcome. And so I think when we talk about SEND, and this is why I do the work that I do, this is why I created the Black SEN Mamas Politics and Parliament Steering Group, and we were actually documented and filmed in an ITV segment because there's so much going on with the SEND system now. It's not fit for purpose, hasn't been for a long time. And we did do a report on the SEND inquiry at Black SEN Mamas, and I held a focus group of mums, several, and they were like, why are we doing this? Why are we answering the government's questions? This is a tick box exercise. And I was like, you need to show up. Everyone else is showing up. And we know what this is. We still need to show up. Because they will say that we didn't try. There we go. And this was at the beginning of 2025. And we did the report and we said, these are all the things wrong with the SEND system, and these are things that need to change. And this is how you can change it. We held their hand. There is no seasoned SEND parent that doesn't know how you need to change the system. And no more than a few months later, we get all these government leaks and newspaper leaks saying that the SEND system is changing and they could be taking away education, health and care plans, which is the support that is legally enforceable, and it stipulates what kind of help our child needs in the classroom. And it's these care plans are sought after because everyone wants to make sure that their child's protected, right? And we get them way less. There are stats behind this. Black girls get them way less than white boys, significantly so. And so we done all of that work for the government to turn around and say, we're taking all these things away. Ultimately, it feels like a lot of the things that they're doing now as far as SEND reform is cost cutting.
Okay.
And the reason why I created the Politics and Parliament Steering Group, because the language of politics is largely inaccessible to the layperson, especially us SEN parents. We've got so much juggling right now. We don't have time to read about politics in great walls of text, right?
all.
We don't know what applies to us.
Yeah.
And I see my people, I see the Black community, I'm like, none of this information, none of these leaks that are happening, like they are getting through to you sometimes, but when they are, they're kind of just being ignored and dismissed because it's difficult for us to recognize how we fit into all of this. And I have to tell them, whatever impacts the wider community, whatever impacts white SEND groups, and they are shouting, they are screaming from the rooftops, you are infringing upon our rights, these other SEND groups, the larger majority, whatever impacts them, we need to be terrified. We need to be terrified. That impact is going to be so acute for us. It's going to be doubly, triply impactful because we have various systemic barriers that we're navigating alongside these new changes that are set to be to our children's detriment. And what does that look like? And I have to break it down to them. In the Politics and Parliament Steering Group, the purpose of that is having professionals like IPSI, who are great. They're an amazing charity in the SEN space. They're great at training, especially as far as SEN law.
Okay.
Special Needs Jungle, whoever else is looking to support, coming in, I say to them, break down everything in lay terms that your average person can understand, so that that language means something to us, so that we understand the implications of these changes as far as how it impacts our child's daily living.
Yeah.
Break it all down.
Yeah.
I want a 5-year-old to be able to understand it.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason why all that language is inaccessible for us. And I'm not having it. Because we are going to get such a raw deal. And I made the call and I said to the mums, this is what we need to do. We need to have this steering group. It's so important. And I had Black SEN Mamas from all over wanting to be involved. Like, it's amazing. ITV filmed it. And yeah, really, really happy to have this thing off the ground. It made such an impact that the Minister for School Standards, Georgia Gould, contacted us, and she was like, "Look, we want to be able to work with you guys, especially as far as cultural competency and informing what SEND reform looks like via consultations going forward." Will that work? Will it be impactful? I don't know, but we have to show up.
There we go. That's it. And if you don't show up, you don't know, right?
That's it.
But at least there's a possibility of a shot there.
Yeah,
That's
and I also
incredible.
need us to see us working together collectively for a goal that benefits us as a community. That in itself, intrinsically, will be beneficial to us.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of how we mobilise and move going forward.
I agree. Love that. With what you've just described, like, that's just... What I wanted to ask you was what does a normal day look like for a SEN mum? But like, you've also just for you in particular, to be honest with you, but you've just given like an overview of the things that you're handling on like the work front and what you're pushing for and what you're working on. What does the day look like for you? Because at the end of the day, you're still a mum, you're still a friend, you're still a partner. You've got 3 babies. What does the day look like?
Real hectic. Yeah, real hectic. Like I said, I didn't know business at the start of this. And so when I put up the webpage and I first started this, obviously I put my own personal number there and it hasn't changed. Unfortunately, I don't even know if I should be saying this because now over 7,000 people have my number. And oftentimes when mums call you, they're in crisis. So that's several calls throughout the day of people in really, and when I'm talking, like a lot of the work that we do is suicide prevention. So when I say crisis, I mean crisis for real. Okay. As in I have to stop whatever I'm doing with my child or my children. Got you. To make sure that someone stays alive for their child or children. Yeah. I'm also still a mum. I'm a mum to children who are neurodivergent and I can't parent in the same way as most other people. A lot of people in my family, the Black community, like the way in which I parent, they'd probably look at as extremely radical. I'm really trying to be a conscious, positive parent because I recognise that, one, my children will take on my voice as their inner voice. Yeah. I want to inspire them growing their own voice and learning to listen and trust in that. I need it not to be negative. Yeah. I also know that, and all my children are autistic with ADHD, children with ADHD in particular hear negative advice or are often in trouble way more often than neurotypical children. And I don't want to add to that. Okay. And then also there's another profile of autism which is called PDA, pathological demand avoidance.
Okay.
And it just means that my child's nervous system is hypervigilant to anything that seems like demand. Their brain just goes off on one, like it feels like fight or flight or whatever else. Just because I've said, can you pick your shoes up and move them? And what that might look like to the average parent that doesn't understand is anything I ask my child to do, they want to do the opposite, or they refuse to do it, even if it's something that they actually probably would like to do, because you've asked them to and you've placed that demand on them, and it's not them, it's their brain in complete overdrive. They don't have control of that. You have to help calm their nervous system, and that's not going to work if you're constantly getting on at them. So there's a whole way in which I do things so that when I'm like, okay guys, it's time to leave Grand's house, and they're all running off in separate directions, and I'm still calm with them. I'm like, you got to put your shoes on, and my mum's like, what the hell? Just put the child's shoes on. I'm like, look, mum, I got this. I got this. And she just gives me that look like, you new aged parents, you don't know what you're doing.
I see.
My parenting looks a lot different to other people. So I have a lot of time in my day where I have to just be patient. I also have to co-regulate a lot, and that is difficult because a lot of adults, especially black girls and black women that are walking around traumatized from being undiagnosed and unsupported their entire lives, we bury that trauma. We don't necessarily work through it to heal it. And I'm no different. And so when I'm parenting my child, I also have to parent myself at the same time. That little girl in me that kind of didn't get the support that I needed. And so the co-regulation thing, that took some time to learn how to do it effectively. One thing I didn't want to do, because I learned in one of the parenting courses that I took, was be calm half of the time and then just lose my ish the other half of the time, because apparently that type of parenting where you're up and down is even worse than just being a completely strict parent. And I was like, I need to veer onto one side and just stay there, which is obviously the positive side which I'm aiming for. So I have to be really reflective and really conscious about the way in which I'm doing things and making sure that I am regulated before I approach with any kind of advice or concern with my children. That takes time. I say all this to say, like, I'm up running about making sure that supports are in place, and I've signposted mums to the right places and doing all of these things, and then I have to come back in and just completely calm all the way down and take time so that I can sit with my kids and do the things that I need to do. On top of that, I'm running a business, so it's admin, it's PR, it's ensuring that things are done, accounts, all of that stuff, applying for things. Like, it's just very hectic and all over the place. For someone like me who needs structure as well, it can be quite overwhelming, and there are points where I don't stop when I should.
Understood.
And I go into burnout, which oftentimes neurodivergent people, they get frequent burnout. And I'm there all the time. But the problem, I don't know if it's a problem, but I have to relinquish all demand on me at that point, which that looks like me completely isolating, going into my room and conserving all the energy I have for the most important thing, which are my children. That means I'm not answering any calls. That means I'm not, that's it. Like, and I have to do that for a while. And I'm like, I have to tell my friends, look, I love you guys. I love you down, but
leave me alone.
You ain't gonna hear from me in a while. I'm so sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. And I'm trying to be unapologetic in advocating for myself in the way that I need to. But I need that time, because one thing I cannot do is sacrifice the quality of my motherhood and my mothering for anything else.
Understood.
So I have to make sure I'm okay so I can parent in the most optimal way for my girls.
100%. Because that's going to be my next question. Like, what do you do to manage the overwhelm or find that peace or balance that you need for yourself as well to do the things that you need to do? So for you, it's just a step away, silence, give me some space kind of vibe.
It can get difficult to do that, because I'm constantly, not only am I working and I'm a mum, but I'm constantly having to fight and navigate the system alongside the other SEN mums, and you're always in hypervigilant on mode, like you're always on, waiting for the next challenge, waiting for the next fight, and it's just it means that you can oftentimes step away from who you are and what your needs are, and you're not in tune to that because you're in a fight or flight mode consistently. Like you don't have time to be reflective or thinking about what I should be putting in place to ensure that I don't reach burnout. I don't have time for that. So, and sometimes I have to learn my lesson the hard way, but oftentimes when I learn those lessons, I will say to myself, these are the things that you need to put in place next time, whether I do or not. That's, you know, neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But the things that I talk about, relinquishing all control, decreasing all demand, increasing time for myself to do what feeds me. I'm polar opposite to a lot of people in my life. Like, they're like, oh, we need to just go out with friends, and I'm very much an introvert. Like, I don't want to see no one. Like, that drains my energy. I want to stay under my quilt and I have my phone, and oftentimes I'll be watching anime. Anime is a thing. I was saying to the other ladies, it's like the thing that feels like it's fantastical, it's escapism, but in a healthy way. I understand you.
Shout out to entry level mums.
Entry level mums. I didn't know if I was allowed to. I didn't know what I could say.
Of course you can say whatever you want. You can swear as much as you want, because I heard you go ish. I'm like, no, use a swear word. No, we love the entry level mums. They know this. That's
So I was telling them, like, I love anime. That's it. That's my world. Like, it just makes me feel so much calmer.
I can see you've literally brightened up just talking about it already.
And then the thing about that is, because it's like animated and cartoons, like I can just force my children to just sit down and watch it.
It's great. No, I hear you. You touched on our community quite a lot, and by our community, I'm referencing the Black community, and you touched on, I guess, things that your mum has noticed or commented on. My mum's exactly the same, etc. Just the differences in style as to how we're parenting. I think, as you said, you're very intentional with what you're doing with your children. I'm very intentional with what I'm doing with my daughter. So my mum can watch and be like, hey, you have time. And I'm like, listen, woman, I do. How are you finding navigating that part? I guess my question was going to be, where does culture support us in this journey, and also where does it hold us back? How are you finding that space? Because it's true, it's not something that's spoken about in our space, or it's like, if you start talking about it enough, don't talk about it too much, you don't want to attract this. Or there are ways in which anything in relation to any type of disability is just we don't talk about it that much. How do you navigate that space? I always talk about creating like a Marsha-sized hole to just step through, because no one's going to create space to make you comfortable. No one's going to create space to accommodate you unless you're loud about it. And you have to be very intentional and very unapologetic about that. And so when I say, this is how I'm going to do things for my children, and this is how I want to, I think I've got so rigid about it now. I probably need to calm down, but I will snap back. Like, you're not going to tell me, like, if you have a problem with the way in which I do things with my kids, it's not one of those ones where I'm just going to be like, okay, auntie, I'll take it on board. Because I'm going to ask you about the way that you raised my cousin. And because it wasn't optimal, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to, and actually, no, that needs to change, because I always talk to the mums about advocating for yourself. And putting boundaries in place and recognizing that no one has to live your life apart from you. So if you need to do things in a certain way, then that's how you should do it. And people that love and respect you will support that. Right? And anyone else, their opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so that's what I would want mums to carry with them. As far as culture, I also say, and this is on a more wider level, because this also is important, we as a people, we come from a collectivist culture, right, back home, wherever that is, as a people, Black people, and we are supportive of each other in community, and it takes the village to raise the child, and, you know, all these kind of things. And then we come over here to a country that is individualistic in nature and promotes the self, and we don't have those connections anymore. We don't have our village, we don't have our tribe, and that makes, especially for those families that are more vulnerable, like SEN families, that makes for a really isolated, lonely, harsh journey. And so when we talk about culture in this context, I really feel like it needs a re-up, because, and I'm directing this to the wider non-SEN Black community. We need you. We actually need you. When I say these people these mums are calling me
to say they're deep in crisis and they have no one. They have no one to turn to, and they're thinking about ending their lives. When I say that all we need is support, all we need is a bit of respite, one night's sleep or a hot bath, and someone to say, you matter, like that's it. Like, it's incumbent upon you as the wider community now, actually, to support us that are the most vulnerable. Because I think it's really important that we conserve as much of our culture as possible in a space that isn't necessarily for us, oftentimes. In systems, socially, so on and so forth. And what that looks like is those of us who can helping those of us who can't. I say to the mums, we're in a sisterhood. That's our community. We're in the sisterhood.
Yeah.
And because of that, we're so self-sufficient. And I said, you know, we're a whole variation of different specialists, different professionals. If anyone needs support in this group, you have social workers coming to your aid. You have psychotherapists, you have Senkos, you have teachers, you have lawyers. These are all SEN mums coming to support each other, writing up letters for each other, walking them to spaces, advocating for them. Like, we are self-sufficient because we have to be. And it works and it's brilliant. But how much stronger are we when we have the whole community behind us?
Course,
because that does wear on you. Like, us having to constantly be our own backbone, that does wear on you. That does damage you. Right now, we are surviving. We are helping each other to survive. But no one's talking about thriving.
Yeah.
And we need that.
I guess the answer might be yes to this, but are you heavily UK based? I wondered if you've become more international now as well, or not yet.
Yeah, so what happened was in our initial support group sessions, I'd have mums calling to be like, they'd all want to come to the sessions, and we'd have like 30 written down on paper, and then only 15 would show. And then every time I called around to each mum, they would all say the same thing, which was, I just couldn't bring my child out, or I couldn't find SEND childcare. It's very difficult to find specialist childcare. And I didn't want to bring my child out. I didn't want him to be too loud in the space. I put a stop to that straight away. I said, first of all, because that hurt me. I was like, what do you need? What do you need from us? This is a SEN mama space, which means it needs to be. And this is when we started making sure that we get feedback forms and we like know what the mums want and do focus groups. Because what do you need from us to make it so that you can attend this space that we are designing for you? What accommodations do we need to make for you and your SEN child? So since that point, well, one of the changes that we made is we have SEN staff, SEN provision and SEN trained TAs on site to help with childcare, so that you have specialised childcare and you can see your child. There's the spaces that we pick often, there's like a glass divide so you can see your child. Because that's a big worry, like especially if you have a child that's non-speaking and you're just handing them over to strangers. No. I'm all right, thanks. So I need them to know your child is safe with us. Look, you can see them. But the biggest change was that we moved everything we do as far as workshops, courses, support group sessions, therapy, online. It's accessible online. And that meant we had a wider reach. So now we have, I'm like, there are people like, oh, we're in such and such, we're in such and such. Someone was like, oh, I'm in Italy, can I join? I'm like, babes, we've got people from Canada, Trinidad, the US, like...
Here's the link.
Literally, show up. Tell us your story. So we have a massive wide reach now because we've made everything accessible to all mamas online. But as far as like the in-person stuff, I can't travel to Italy. Well, I can.
You can.
But I don't know about America. It's a bit far. Especially with all the other stuff that's
there we go.
So those stuff, that's generally in the UK, usually in London. What we do is we travel to where all the mums are. So whoever's booking on, we have a database of all the mums. We have their profiles. So whoever's booking on to come to a group that we're holding in North London, we can see where they all live. And then we make sure that the place that we pick, the venue, is specifically central to all of them. So no one has to travel more than 20 minutes. And we do that north, south, east, west. So that's how we do things.
Brilliant. Okay. You've touched on it just now a little bit, But what have you seen happen when women feel like they finally feel seen and heard?
Oh man, we had the Black SEN Mamas celebration of her soiree, which we held in the treasure rooms in Ealing, near Ealing, and it was a celebration it was in March, so we had the spring equinox, we had Mother's Day and International Women's Day, and we combined them all. Amazing. And we had different elements, nods towards what we were doing throughout the night. So everyone came dressed in their cultural garb, to signify their cultural background. We had a vision board activity where we had the mums who had sent me their pictures. So they had 2 pictures, one to represent the past and one to represent what they want going forward this year. Yeah. And they would each stand up and they took the mic and they added it to a board, which will now become a Black SEN Mamas collage. I'm going to get it printed out, take it to us with all our events. Nice. So they took the mic, and when they spoke about like what the past year has been for them and what future they want, I was like, and I think this is because I always encourage vulnerability, because I'm like, guys, we don't get this. Black women don't get this. Use this space. Show up however you want. Like, we had people come into the support group sessions, the online ones, with their makeup done. I was like, if you don't put your bonnet on and take that off your face, it's not that kind of deal. Like, vulnerability for real. We're not. This is not performative. Like, I need you to understand, because from vulnerability, that's when the healing starts, right? And so I realized that we've taken on this culture, and in that group, like, no one holds back. Like, everyone is just honest. And it's not that performative mask that we often see Black women holding. It wasn't. I was so proud that people were telling us the inner depth of their feelings, like when they were down, when they were downtrodden, and how they feel now. And even if they haven't moved from feeling low, like they're being honest with it, like, that makes me proud. That speaking our truth, because we know that this is what is going to benefit us, speaking our truth in the face of potential judgment. It's not a judgmental group, but we don't practice. That's one of our rules. There's no judgment. I think that's why everyone feels safe. But saying exactly what you're going through in a room full of your peers can be daunting. And they just got up on that mic and they were proud with it and loud with it. And I was like, this is what we're building. Yeah, we don't need masks here. No. Brilliant.
Okay. Adding on to this is what you're building. Earlier on you spoke about the system, what isn't working, what is broken, the fact that it's designed to go a certain way, and the changes that you are working to, at minimum, voice. If the current system didn't exist, what would you build instead?
I would centre children and not bureaucracy. I would ensure that children come before anything, cost cutting. I would ensure that parents aren't blamed and we're seen as partners. Right, they should be working with, in fact, we should be central to all of this. We are the advocates for our children, disabled children and their parents, disabled people in general, anything for the disabled community. We should be heading those conversations, those decisions. We should be at the table. It should be our table. You should be coming to us and asking, how can we support? That's number one. Get rid of this medical approach to supporting disability, and by that I mean looking at the individual as the problem, and how can we fix that individual. We need to take a more integrated social approach, as in how can we fix society to ensure that it's inclusive for every single one of us, especially the most vulnerable in this society. And I think diagnosis would not be a gateway to provision. I think provision would be embedded in the curriculum. The whole curriculum would just have a complete upheaval, and it would be about ensuring that access was the most inclusive thing. Access to education was the most inclusive thing possible. Like, that would be the priority, inclusion. Because everyone should be able to access education. It's their human right to access education, and that should have been the priority. These governments are making decisions based on saving money, and the thing about cost shifting is that you shift it to later life, when these children come back with mental, emotional and social health issues and are still reliant on the system, but even worse so because the lack of support during their formative years is just exacerbated and contributed to even worse mental health issues.
What would motherhood feel like if the support that you needed was actually in place?
Mothers would be able to return to nurturing and loving on their children instead of their time being heavily invested in fighting constantly just to get the basic provision that they are legally already entitled to. I just want to make that clear. They're fighting for what they are actually entitled to, should be coming to them off the bat. They would be able to return to their primary mode as a mum.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to be the doctor, the lawyer. They wouldn't have to be a master strategist. They would just be the person that loves on their child.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's something that a lot of us can take for granted because you haven't had to think of that as a possibility for you or as a version for you. Yeah, because a lot of us can definitely have and I know this is true where before the day has started, you've already had a day getting the kids ready for school or whatever you've got to do. So that's a version of events for people. That's true. But if you add the added dimension of having a child who's neurodivergent, having a disability, having to navigate that space, that's a day on top of a day. But it's I guess how I'm starting to frame it in my head.
It's a day on top of a day.
Yeah,
there are,
like
for me, one of my middle child, 8 years old, she when she doesn't feel psychologically safe in the schooling environment, she has what we call emotion-based school avoidance. She doesn't want to be in that space. And I've had some real discussions with myself about forcing my child into a space that she knows isn't right for her. And what does that do in terms of my relationship with my daughter and the trust? And so I'm very keen on honouring when she says she needs a mental health day.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Slightly odd question, perhaps, because we only know what we know, I guess. Have you ever had to grieve the type of motherhood you thought you were going to have?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to grieve when you're in go mode, survival mode.
As you said, yeah.
But I definitely... I think that's something that's another one of those things, those traumas that I've buried.
Okay.
But that one's, I mean, I'll have to face it at some point. But it's really, it's that one's okay because I have 3 amazing, beautiful children, and my life wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But actually, I have a sneaking suspicion that it's way better. Yeah. Because of my children.
Understood. For a mum at the very beginning of this journey, what's the first thing she needs to know, do you think?
Armour yourself with the knowledge that you need to navigate these systems. Armour yourself with as much knowledge as possible regarding neurodivergence. And the knowledge needs to be neuro-inclusive and neuro-affirming. We have to be progressive. Like, I know change takes time, but be very progressive, be intentional about ensuring that you're doing things in a way that celebrates your child's differences. We should be celebrating differences. Autism was a word we didn't really say in my mum's house, even after knowing that I had an autistic child. We kind of skirted around it.
Okay.
And that's because my mum was like, she's just her. Don't worry about the other word. She's just her, which is very true and very valid. But in my house, we make jokes all the time, like about autism and ADHD, and like, that's a little too autistic. Like, but I've made sure to do the groundwork so that that isn't something that my child thinks is negative, but it's actually like we are normalizing every aspect of ourselves, and there's so much that we love about our autism and our ADHD. There's so much. It's an unending list, and I love that for us. I really do. So I think, making sure that you're coming at this from an angle that celebrates your individual differences, your child's individual differences, draws connection, looking at the similarities between your ADHD and your child's ADHD, or the differences, or like you might have autism, or you might be autistic and your child may have ADHD, and just talking about them like you would any other conversation. You know, I think also it's really important to assert boundaries, because these family members will mash up your mental health. I'm not even joking. Like, they really will. And they're not meaning to. And I always say to the mums, like, have grace for those people that haven't walked this path, because they know not what they do oftentimes. And they want to pray for you, and they want to pray out of your child, and they want to, and that's coming from a space of concern and sometimes love. But also, you know, have grace for them, but also, you know, assert your boundaries and say, look, I don't need that. Thank you, but I don't need that. My child's fine.
Understood, for sure. What gives you hope right now?
I think the fact that Black SEN Mamas has come on leaps and bounds in various aspects. One, us growing as a community still so rapidly. Like, I can't believe, like, I say we're over 7,000. We're a lot closer to 8,000. And then, like, seeing the gradual change in case studies with the mums when they first started to how they are now. I always talk about this whole cultural shift of society whereby we need to collectively be supporting those that are more vulnerable. I've said it many times in this interview, I'm sure. But we have like this whole microcosm with the mums whereby we've been doing that. We've been there. Like, we're doing the things that we need to do. Like, we're neuroaffirming, we're neuroinclusive, we are non-judgmental, we love vulnerability. Like, all the things that I need for wider society to do so that wider society can show us that they have us. We're doing for each other. And I love that. Like, that's what gives me hope. That's like, okay, it can be done. We just need the right people at the helm, people like me.
There you go. I love it. People like me, and that's what's up. And I guess before we go to all things like quick fire and fun, I wanted to ask you, what does a thriving SEN family look like to you? Not just surviving, but thriving. Which I know you've touched on a little bit. I think your family's a great example as well, actually.
Yeah, and I'll use mine, actually. There's still a lot of work to be done. This is like a ever evolving, like, you have to be intentional about doing this work for the entirety of being a SEN family, a SEN mum. Like, you have to really know that this is not linear, because there's always going to be something new on this journey, but you are going to be intentional about approaching it from a space of radical acceptance, curiosity, even welcoming changes and differences and challenges on the journey, because that's an opportunity for growth. But I think for us, what is going well is our whole attitude towards neurodivergence, the curiosity and wanting to learn more, being able to advocate for yourselves as a family, being able to go into different spaces. And that's not always a reality for SEN families. Like, there's many places that are not inclusive and that we can't bring our children. I think thriving, and the thing about that is it's very difficult, because in part that is incumbent upon the spaces that we enter to make them accessible to us as well.
Got you.
So when I talk about like going to different spaces, it would be a lot easier if society was like, yeah, let's include them so that we can go to these spaces with our children and help our children thrive. But in the absence of that, it very much is doing what you can with your children, doing what you can with your family to ensure that you guys are obtaining some level of growth through this journey, in terms of learning about yourself, learning about your needs, advocating for yourself, creating a you-sized shaped whole, so that you're not just stuck on waiting for people to accommodate you. And radical acceptance and being unapologetic in all things you.
My favourite thing, I think, so far from our conversation is definitely the U-shaped size hole.
You
mentioned that a few times. I've got a Marsha-sized hole. So I really love that as a visual. I know I've barely scratched the surface with you, but to wrap up, I want to do some quick fire, just random things with you.
Cool.
You've mentioned anime a couple of times, so the first thing has to be, what is your favourite anime film right now?
I've got right now. It's more like the series.
Okay.
Of course.
I'll take series.
Demon Slayer is at my top, I think.
Okay.
And what? I'm so embarrassed.
Say it.
I think Demon Slayer is the one that got me through like such, and it's such a long series as well. The times. I don't want to say the other one. Okay,
that's fine. Absolutely fine. Okay, next. Okay. We'll go simple. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Okay. And one word to describe your journey?
feel like maybe we could. Can mad ting be considered
Accepted?
Yeah, as one word. Yeah,
I
because
hear you.
helping. Yeah, there's a lot.
Mad. Okay, cool. I hear you. Something that brings you peace.
Kaiju number 9, by the way, is another really exceptional anime that people should watch.
Okay.
One thing that brings me peace.
Yeah.
Oh, seeing my girls happy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
like,
amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like when they're engaged in something. This might be the Caribbean in me, but especially like when it's learning, we're learning together. But I'm like, yeah, we're doing. This is how you're supposed to parent. Yeah,
Nice.
we're doing the thing.
Favorite artist at the moment? Music artist at the moment?
I don't know. I'm one of those aunties that's just stuck back in. Do you know who I've been listening to a lot actually recently? Daneo's made a comeback.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, bringing back the vibes from back then. This is
I
what I
know
like.
exactly what you meant, and I went exactly to that time, so I'm with you. I understand that exactly. One thing every mum deserves.
Oh, what? Just one? Yeah, compassion.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
That's a great one. A boundary you've had to learn the hard way. Too many.
let me tell you something.
Go on.
Do you know what it is? Coming into and I hate to talk on this, and I never talk on this because I don't like talking about our problems amongst non-our people.
Fair enough. Understood.
But coming into this space of grassroots and you guys need to do better. I came into this thing like, yeah, we're all in this together. You know, like we're going to help each other. We're going to help the Black community. Yeah, we're going to help each other level up and like the amount of gatekeeping, and they're not just gatekeeping. People won't stop at that. They will try and knock you off your pedestal, and steal your ideas. Like the corruption is so crazy, and I refuse to bring it to light because our community are looking up to us, and they don't know that their faves as far as like grassroots charities are the worst people in the world. So I don't want to. I'm like, okay, let me just keep it to myself for the greater good.
Understood.
Right? But some of you are like, some of you are out here praying to God and then acting the way that you act. So you have to actually.
She said what she said.
Take stock.
She said what she said. Okay, on that note.
Yeah.
Because I want people to think about that. On that note, Marsha, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been good. Thank you.
Like I said, I know I've barely scratched the surface with this for sure. But I'm really, really thankful that you came and were able to share in the way that you did. And you are highlighting the steps that you and the group are taking, the community are taking, and where you want this to go. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you. As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, because these conversations matter. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, and follow Milk Mummies for more real conversations just like this. I'll see you on the next one.